The city of Mecca, 570 CE. A pregnant woman named Amina is about to give birth to a child who will change the course of human history forever. But in the months leading up to his birth, something strange is happening. Christian monks and scholars across Syria and Arabia claim to see signs in the heavens. Persian priests wake up in the night as a sacred fire that has burned for 1,000 years suddenly goes out. And in the same year, an army with war elephants marches toward Mecca to destroy the most sacred site in Arabia. What happened in those final days before this child was born? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why so many historians call this the year the world held its breath. Before we go further, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're about to walk through one of the most fascinating chapters in religious history, and you don't want to miss what comes next. The world before his birth. To understand the significance of this birth, you need to picture the world it happened into. Arabia in the late 500s was a land of tribal warfare, idol worship, and buried baby girls. Mecca sat at the crossroads of trade routes connecting Yemen, Syria, and beyond, and at its center stood the Kaaba, a cube-shaped structure said to have been built by Abraham, now filled with hundreds of idols. Meanwhile, the two great empires of the age, the Byzantines and the Persians, were locked in endless war. The world seemed to be waiting for something. And in Mecca, a young man named Abdullah, from the respected clan of Banu Hashim, had just married a woman named Amina. The year of the elephant. This is where the story gets dramatic. That same year, an Abyssinian governor named Abraha, who ruled parts of Yemen, had built a massive cathedral and wanted it to replace the Kaaba as the center of Arabian pilgrimage. When that failed, he marched an army toward Mecca, bringing with him war elephants, animals the Arabs had never seen before. The Meccans, vastly outnumbered, retreated to the hills. But according to tradition, the army never reached the city. Flocks of birds appeared, dropping stones, and the army was destroyed. This event was so significant it became known as the Year of the Elephant, and it's the very year historians place the birth we're discussing. The death of a father before birth. Here's where the story becomes deeply human. Before his son was even born, Abdullah died on a trading journey to Yathrib, the city later known as Medina. He was in his mid-20s. This meant that the child growing in Amina's womb would never meet his own father. In a society where man's status and protection came through his father and tribe, this was no small tragedy. Amina was left a young widow, carrying a child who would enter the world already having lost the one person meant to shield and provide for him. Signs across the ancient world, Islamic tradition, and several historical accounts describe unusual occurrences around this period. Some reports describe a bright light said to have shone from Amina during her pregnancy, illuminating even distant palaces in Syria. Other accounts, popular in later Islamic literature, describe the sacred fire of Persia, which Zoroastrian priests had kept burning for centuries, mysteriously extinguishing that same year. It's important to be honest here. Historians debate how much of this is later religious embellishment added decades or centuries after the fact versus something rooted in real memory. But what's undeniable is that these stories became deeply woven into how later generations understood this moment, as a turning point the universe itself seemed to notice. A city unprepared for what was coming. Mecca, in these final months, was not thinking about prophecy. It was thinking about trade, tribal politics, and rebuilding after the shock of the Elephant Army's defeat. Amina, now a widow, was living under the care of father-in-law, Abdullah, the chief of his clan and keeper of the sacred well Zamzam. He was still grieving the sudden loss of Abdullah, one of his most beloved sons, and the aging patriarch now put all his hope of protection into the unborn child his daughter-in-law was carrying. Nobody in that household could have imagined that this child would become a founder of one of the world's largest religions, followed today by nearly 2 billion people. The final weeks, as Amina's pregnancy progressed, tradition holds that she experienced a sense of ease and lightness unlike the usual hardship of childbirth in the ancient desert, along with vivid dreams she couldn't fully explain. Meccan society at the time had a custom where wealthy families sent newborns to be nursed by Bedouin women in the desert, believing the harsh, pure environment strengthened children and taught them classical Arabic. This custom would soon play a major role in the child's early life, though that's a story for another video. For now, All of Mecca's attention was on ordinary matters. Nobody was watching the sky, waiting. The most important birth in Arabian history was about to happen quietly, in a modest home, to a widow with no husband and no idea of what her son would become. The birth, in the early morning hours, traditionally dated to the 12th of Rabi'ah, all in the year of the elephant, Amina gave birth to a son. She named him Muhammad, meaning the praised one, a name that was uncommon in Arabia at the time, Abdul-Muttalib. Overjoyed despite his grief over Abdullah's death, took the infant to the Kaaba and gave thanks. Nobody in that moment knew what was coming. Not the wars, not the migrations, not the spread of a message across continents. All they knew was that a child had survived birth, that his mother had survived childbirth, and that life in Mecca would continue as it always had. Why this moment still matters. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the religious significance for over 1 billion Muslims today. It's the sheer improbability of it. A fatherless child, born into a small trading city on the edge of 2 failing empires, in a year already marked by war and destruction, would go on to reshape the political and spiritual map of the world. Whether you view these events through a lens of faith or history, the final days before this birth remain one of the most quietly dramatic setups in human history, a storm of destruction, loss, and uncertainty, right before the calm arrival of a child the world had not yet learned to watch for. If you found this breakdown valuable, let me know in the comments which part surprised you most, the year of the elephant or the death of his father before he was even born. And if you want more deep dives into the events and people that shaped world history, subscribe, because we got a lot more of these stories coming.